Let's teach him a lesson!
Now you see me. Now you don't.
Hello and welcome back to another exciting episode from Marvelous Videos. I'm your host, Tia Ayer. Tygra, Origin Thundercats. Tygra, the Thundrian noble, is a personal favorite for many. This multifaceted Thundercat can pilot like a pro, shoot like an ace, come up with the most complicated but efficient tech designs, and be the most confusing enemy to go against due to his stealthy techniques. With ThunderCats getting a reboot in 2011, Tygra's story also gets more fleshed out and, dare we say, more interesting. In today's video, we will talk about everything Tygra, starting from his journey to Third Earth from Thundra in the 1985 show to his love triangle with Chitara and Lion-O in the reboot. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
This out. Now you see me. Now you don't.
Tygra in the original ThunderCats animated series. Tygra made its first appearance in the 1985 ThunderCats during its pilot's episode, Exodus. He was a Thunderian noble, scientist, and architect who was assigned with looking after Lion-O's growth away from his home planet of Thundera. With Thunder's destruction, Jaga the Wise takes him with Lion-O, Tygra, Chitara, Panthro, Wily Cat, and Snarf. As such, ThunderCats journey to a new habitable planet in their royal flagship. They are soon attacked by the mutants of planet Plundar, for they want nothing more than to get their hands on the powerful Thundrian relic, the Eye of Thundera. The mutants manage to cause severe damage to the flagship and infiltrate it. The situation might be a fearsome one, but Tygra openly shows his excitement in fighting some mutants. He goes against a group of humanoid monkeys, and we see his kick-ass abilities for the first time. Tygra appears in front of them, but miraculously disappears as he says, "Now you don't see me." Suddenly, he attacks them from behind and says, "Now you do." The other ThunderCats fight the mutants as well, but when the Sword of Omens comes alive in Lion-O's hands, the mutants are forced to run with their tails between their legs. Unfortunately, the attack has rendered the flagship incapable of heading towards its designated direction. So Panthro locates the new planet of Third Earth, since its atmosphere seems to be habitable for the cats, and so the ThunderCats get into their suspension pods, including Tygra, while Jaga stays to maneuver the ship manually for as long as possible until he passes away. That was inevitable for him anyway, since the planet was light years away and even the suspension pod would not be able to save him. A grown Lion-O and Snarf are the first ones to come out of their suspension pods on the new planet, where they have to engage the mutants of Plundar once again. But when Lion-O gets the Sword of Omens back, he uses the Eye of Thundera to awaken the other ThunderCats from their state of suspension. As Tygra comes out of the pod, he immediately pounces on the reptilian mutants and disappears to confuse them. We see him use his whip to bring down the enemy for the first time as well. And so the ThunderCats begin their new life in Third Earth, with Lion-O as their lord and the others at his aid. What's strange is Tygra and Chitara seem to have a very subtle closeness with each other. They do not get together in this series unlike their 2011 counterparts. However, you can often see them fondly touching one another's arms or shoulders, or even fighting with their backs to each other. This is probably the spark that causes the writers to develop a romance between the two in the 2011 animated series. In Third Earth, Tygra showed off his prowess as an architect and a scientist as he designed all the ThunderCat-themed structures across the planet, most notably the Cat's Lair and the Tower of Omens. He would go on to create many other devices, which the ThunderCats would use later to explore New Thundera. Other than that, Tygra acted as the second-in-command of the council leader of the ThunderCats. Since he was level-headed and staunch, it only made sense for him to have this position. His mind power, which allows him to create lifelike illusions, and his character, being based on integrity, sets Tygra apart from the rest. Tygra has faced many adversities throughout the series. A memorable and scary one would be when he ventured into a mysterious cave. Tygra had gotten his hands on a large amount of Thunderillium, a fuel that could power the Cat's Lair and the vehicles of the ThunderCats. However, the cave that it was found in was a strange one that sped up time, causing Tygra to grow so old that he almost came close to death. Thankfully, the ThunderCats and their allies known as the Warrior Maidens were able to restore him back to his original form with help from the mystical Fountain of Youth. Other cool stories would involve his interactions with Mumra, For someone who creates illusions to confuse the mind, Tygra was not immune to trickery, and that is exactly what happened when Mumra disguised himself into a female-like plant and used a spell on Tygra to steal the Sword of Omens. He snapped out of it later, but during another time, Mumra got Tygra involved in a fight with Lino. Lino tried to use the sword on Tygra as the two ThunderCats attacked each other. However, a curse called the Curse of Bothas prevented the sword from being used against the ThunderCat. So when Lino used the Sword of Omens to attack another fellow ThunderCat, the weapon snapped in half. It had to be taken to a volcano's heart to be repaired. Tygra also played a monumental role during Lionel's anointment trials during the fourth task. The first three tasks required Lionel to defeat Panthro in strength, Chitara in speed, and Wily Cat in cunning. The fourth task pitted him against Tygra to test his mind. Unfortunately for Tygra, the mind powers often took a huge toll on him, so he seldomly used them. That's why he had prepared his mental strength beforehand for the trial as he sent a barrage of illusions in Lionel's way. Lionel was able to see through Tygra's fake blizzards and attacks, but ultimately he was made to face his worst fear. Tygra took him back to Thundra on the day of his destruction, and he pulled all of these incredible feats while fighting off the mutants, with more tricks as the pesky little villains tried their best to interfere in the trials. Ultimately, Lionel overcame his fear and engaged in his hand-to-hand combat with Tygra, where the former emerged victorious, and Tygra was way too exhausted anyways. Later, New Thundra was formed, and the ThunderCats split their responsibilities and duties to look after both Third Earth and New Thundra. Tygra was one of the few who stayed back to look after and protect Third Earth. As a proficient pilot and shooter, Tygra once decided to meet the other ThunderCats on New Thundra in the episode The Mossland Monster. So he took the vehicle known as the Feliner as he flew to the planet while Panthro and Lionel kept a watch over his navigation and tracks. On his way, Panthro notices that Tygra's safety is compromised due to a meteor shower. He asks Tygra to take a longer route to maneuver the ship around the shower, but Tygra feels overly confident about his skills and decides not to waste time and just swerve through the meteors. He does well at first. However, after a meteor whirlwind proves itself to be another huge obstacle, Tygra cannot go any longer. The Feliner takes a huge hit and crash lands on an uncharted territory of New Thundra, the Mossland. Tygra is oblivious to how bleak things look for him. Even his communication with Lionel and the others get cut off, minus the visual feed. He tries to fix the ship by himself when a weird creature that Snarf believe is almost 100 feet tall attacks Tygra. Lionel and Bengali, Tygra's son, see him in a dire situation and head out in the Thunder Tank to save him. They are accompanied by Snarf and his new Snarfer. Meanwhile, the Mossland monster proves itself capable of being able to see through Tygra's invisibility. It then goes on to use some ocular attacks to cover Tygra in moss. The others reach the site of action and try to find Tygra, but they are greeted by the Mossland monster instead. It is too strong and they have a hard time against it, but they even manage to beat him. Unfortunately, that victory turns out to be temporary. The monster reawakens and captures all of them with its moss. Before push comes to shove, Lionel uses his Sword of Omens to summon the Rock Guardians, who engage the monster in a battle. Finally, the Guardians use Lionel's sword to win the battle and save everyone. Since the situation is technically the fault of Tygra and his cockiness, he apologizes to everyone in the end. Tygra is supposed to be all about his integrity, but acting in a reckless manner actually makes his character better. It makes Tygra more realistic, as it shows us that no one is perfect, not even the respectable superpowered characters in the works of fantasy fiction. Apart from the animated series, Wildstorm Comics have also ventured into the ThunderCat storylines, and they have given us a secondary canon. Unlike Chitara and Mumra, Tygra did not even get an origin story as such in ThunderCats, heroes and villains. However, he does get a continuation of his story. In this canon, Lionel leaves to complete his training while the mutants enslave Chitara. Tygra's fate looks bleak as he is tortured into becoming a shell of his former self. Mumra and the mutants are also forcing him to use his creativity and intelligence to design architectural structures for the enemy. After he is freed alongside Chitara, he helps her heal from the humiliation that she was subjected to during her time as a slave. Naturally, the two of them develop a romantic relationship and eventually give birth to Thunder Kittens. They also become the king's elite guards. All's well that ends well.
That's for me, and that's for Lionel.
his story in the 2011 ThunderCats reboot of the original television series. Surely, the original ThunderCats is one of a kind. It is the blueprint. We get it, but the Tygra from the 2011 reboot might just be the better character. And we're not sorry for saying this. His story and his dynamic with Lion-O is a lot more complex and interesting here. Here, Tygra is the adoptive brother of Lion-O. Thundra still exists with Claudius as its ruler, and Jaga is still alive. The Tygra in the series has several similarities to the original, but some are more subtle. For example, he gets seasick, which parallels the original Tygra, who could not swim unless he was invisible. He is also able to become a decent pilot at once despite not having any prior experience with technology in the reboot. It is of course very well known that in the 1985 Tygra is an ace pilot. The original show had Tygra and Chitara being a bit physically close, which we have already spoken about. Their romance is also a significant contributor to the storyline when it comes to the reboot. But let's rewind a little bit more. Let's see how Tygra got adopted by the king and queen of Thundra. Claudius and his wife, who remains unnamed, were desperately trying for a baby. In their case, a cub. However, their constant failures led the queen to blame herself for it, and soon after, an infant tiger cub descended on the palace after floating on a hot air balloon. Beside the cub was a piece of paper that spelled out his name, Tygra. The king and queen, upon seeing the cub and the timing of his arrival, considered it to be a sign from God. And that's how Tygra was adopted and lived as the prince of Thundra. But not long before, as the queen was finally able to get pregnant, and around this time, she stopped addressing Tygra as her handsome little prince, because now the rightful prince was about to come.
You are my handsome little darling.
Unfortunately, the queen died after giving birth to Lion-O due to several complications. Tygra naturally went on to develop feelings of jealousy towards Lion-O, and in hindsight, mentioned how on the day of his birth, he lost the two things that he cherished the most, his mother and his kingdom. Tygra gradually got older and became a military guard post for his first military function. Around this time, he met Chitara, who was on the lookout for the clerics, and was passionate about joining them. Tygra blushed on seeing her, so much so that he lost his speech for a second until he saw her super speed and could not help but compliment her on it. He helped Chitara and guided her to the cleric's domain, where Jaga tested her, but her lack of patience caused her to fail the trial. Chitara was not the type to give up. She decided to stay back and wait in front of the doors until Jaga took her in. Since Tygra had begun to like her, he would hide to steal glances at her and even gave her a flower when she was sleeping. Later, Chitara's patience and perseverance got noticed, and Jaga took her in. But her becoming a cleric meant that Tygra and Chitara would never see each other again. Tygra's bond with Lion-O also got sour with time due to their on and off again rivalry.
I'm gonna ring that bell. And I'm gonna ring yours.
Especially because Tygra would often beat Lion-O in sparring matches and was referred by the Thundrians. Even King Claudius believed that Lion-O should be more interested in studying military strategy like Tygra instead of being obsessed with technology, which was a myth in their world. In fact, many believed that Tygra should be king over Lion-O, but the latter, being able to wield the Sword of Omens, left a bitter taste in his mouth. At the end of the day, Tygra's confidence did not change the fact that Lion-O was meant to be king. Tygra met Chitara once again after they had all been grown up and were attending a ceremony that would determine whether Lion-O is worthy of being a king. He still liked her and flirted with her. Soon, the Thundercat Groon returned and claimed that Panthro was dead, and they could not find the Thundrian relic of the Book of Omens, a book that contained all the knowledge about the Thundercats. Tygra went as far as to express how he believed that the book was a fable, just like Mumra and technology. Later, Lion-O tried to defend some lizardmen from the Thundrians, as he was empathetic towards every creature. Tygra did not stand by it, and his sentiments turned out to be true, with the lizards attacking Thundra using technology. Mumra was relieved to be the puppeteer pulling the strings, while Groon had betrayed the crown to side with Mumra. Claudius was also killed by Mumra, and Panthro had been held hostage. The cats were captured for being enslaved, but ultimately Lion-O, Tygra, Chitara, and Jaga were able to escape. As fate would have it, Jaga had to be left back once again. The ThunderCats then set out to find the Book of Omens. Their mission was a success, and they even regrouped with Wily Cat, and Tygra. From the Book of Omens, Lion-O learned about 3 other Power Stones aside from the Eye of Thundra, which would all need to be used to defeat Mumra. So they all set out to find the Power Stones, but with Lion-O and Chitara's friendship getting deeper, Tygra started to get super jealous once again. In fact, once after Chitara complimented Lion-O, he clearly told Tygra that she will choose him over Tygra. And Tygra mentioned how apart from the Sword of Omens, Chitara was another thing that Lion-O did not deserve. On that day, the ThunderCats went to Elephant Village to get the Astral Realm for the Spirit Stone. Chitara had even given Lion-O a good luck kiss on the cheek, albeit not romantically, which made Tygra fume with jealousy. The elephant leader, Annette, was quick to sense the bubbly negativity between the 2 brothers and made a prophecy that Lion-O would be betrayed by his brother soon, so much so that it would be devastating for him. Lion-O found that a bit odd because Tygra was not the type to betray his brother despite all of their rivalry. In the Astral Realm, Mumra pitted Tygra and Lion-O against each other as he used Chitara as the catalyst, but Tygra, instead of betraying Lion-O, sided with him and saved the both of them. This eased their relationship, and they even found the Spirit Stone. Later, Chitara approached Tygra about the situation and told him how he was the one that she had feelings for. They go on to share a passionate kiss, which Lion-O witnesses. This ends up as the betrayal that had been predicted. With Lion-O's relationship with both Tygra and Chitara ruined, his performance dwindled and caused them to fall into Mumra's ambush. Ultimately, Lion-O seemingly died, causing Tygra to become the Lord of the ThunderCats. As such, Tygra vowed to attack Mumra's pyramid to get the Sword of Omens back. However, Lion-O had come back from the dead due to the Spirit Stone and beat Tygra to it, as he was the one who procured the sword instead. They went on their journey to continue to find the Power Stones. In another episode, Tygra and Lion-O found themselves in the snowy mountains. Lion-O threw snowballs at Tygra, much to the latter's detestment, causing him to scream. The echo caused an avalanche which revealed a cave. The 2 big cats ventured into the cave where they came face to face with the lost Tiger clan. Here, Tygra met his real father, Javon, for the first time. Naturally, Tygra resented Javon for abandoning him, but Javon insisted that he did it to protect Tygra. He also spoke about the dangers of the place to Tygra and asked him to leave. This turned out to be true, as the 2 cats were soon attacked by weird-looking creatures, and so Tygra decided to give his real father a chance after he saved them from the attack. Meanwhile, Lion-O sensed that something was fishy and used the sight beyond sight ability to find out what was going on. Soon he saw that all the tigers there were none other than the weird creatures that tried to kill them. Javon caught Lion-O and asked him not to tell Tygra the truth. He went on to reveal the truth behind him, sending Tygra away. A devastating plague was on the verge of wiping out the tigers. As previous enemies of the ThunderCats, they could not let their pride go and seek their help. So they sought out the ancient spirits, who asked Javon to sacrifice Tygra, who was a cub back then, for the sake of the village. The sick tiger soon recovered, and Javon had to deal with killing his cub. However, he decided to send him off to another place instead. And when the ancient spirits found out, they placed a curse on the tiger, turning them into creatures of the night who were neither dead nor alive. They could appear as tigers as long as the sun was out, but after sunset, they would have no control over their disguise. When Tygra learns of this story, he manages to forgive his father. Despite being a tiger, Tygra was able to choose humility and forgiveness over his pride, which broke the curse. Gradually, the other tigers started to vanish after Javon thanked Tygra for freeing him. It ended sadly for Tygra because he once again lost what he cared for. Later, the ThunderCats rescued and enslaved Pumaira, who was made to work for the Mumra. But during a fight against Mumra, every ThunderCat except Lion-O was taken to Mount Plundar, which meant that Tygra had been taken as well. Unfortunately, despite having an intense first season, the second season of the show was cancelled. A storyline for Tygra had already been set in stone where he would kill Pumaira, for he could not trust her. This would put him at odds with Lion-O once again. He would also rebuild New Thundra and have a son named Bengali with Chitara while leading a rebellion against the lizards. They would later unite with all of the ThunderCats again and fight Mumra, but the writers had intended to kill off Tygra, who would die saving Lion-O from being killed by Mumra and his Sword of Plundar. The writers even debated whether Tygra would die once and for all, or if he would be brought back with the Power Stones. What makes Tygra so powerful? Tygra is a Thunderian noble, which means that he gets his powers from the Eye of Thundra. As such, his powers and abilities are no joke. He is incredible with stealth, as he can go invisible and attack from anywhere that he wants to. He also has terrific mind powers, which can cook up illusions that look too real to be fake. Enemies are lucky that this ability tires Tygra. Other than that, his intelligence makes him a cut above the rest, as he is an architect and interested in scientific research. He is also the type to ponder over the various possibilities instead of being impulsive. On the flip side, he has low self-confidence and is vulnerable to addiction. In both versions of the animated series, he is great as an unarmed combatant as well as with a sword. In the reboot, Tygra studied military strategies with King Claudius and as such has a blunt and dominating style of command. He also uses a whip in both versions, which makes him a more versatile fighter. With experiences comes wisdom, and the more experiences a tiger has, it gains more wisdom, and with that, it is able to earn its stripes. Tygra is the same, even if he acted recklessly in the episode with the Mossland monster or acted jealous instead of communicating with Lion-O and Chitara. These experiences and the wisdom gained from them helped Tygra become the Thundercat with incomparable integrity and wisdom. And with that, today's video comes to an end. What did you think of Tygra? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
That's how you want to play it.